Welcome back, everyone. We are going to do part 2 of our birth saga. Today, we want to talk about the postpartum experience because there is so much focus on birth. And then, if you've been through this before, you know that postpartum hits you, or at least hit us like a freight train. Sure, I could think of a more fun analogy there, but it hit me like a ton of bricks, like a wet sandbag on a sunny day. Is that a good one?
A wet sandbag.
I wanted to think of something creative. But today we're going to talk about what we went through after. So let's pick up kind of where we left off. We talked about the birthing of the blood clot, the eventual birthing of the placenta. I just remember after the birth experience, us cuddling all up together in the bed and taking the most glorious, wonderful nap together as a family. What do you remember after the birth?
It is a blur, and we had to do a little, pre-podcast walk down memory lane because it is such a blur, and especially now that we're almost 3 years removed from it. I do just want to take a quick second because I can't remember if on our previous podcast I acknowledged how amazingly you performed and how incredible it was to be in your presence, to be in that field, sharing that space with you while you were doing God's work, and no, maybe the devil's work, because that was intense. But it was so special to be a part of. I was so amazed by you. I always have been, but this was like a whole different level of like, holy crap! I will do anything for this woman for the rest of her life because if she did that, I can do anything. And I know we were joking that like maybe a couple of months ago, I don't know, we had some interesting food, and I had like a digestive bug, and I was like, damn, dude, like I would tap out so hard in anything related to birth because I'm like, oh, my tummy hurts. I'm like, I'll just kill me now. So anyway, I want to take a second to acknowledge that you were amazing and it was so impressive and so powerful and so inspiring. And I use that as a reference point often in my life where I'm like, oh, I'm dealing with the sore this or that. Well, if Eva can do what she did, then quit your bitching. Well, maybe we'll have to censor that one out. Sorry, people. Anyway, yeah, from the postpartum perspective, definitely a blur. I mean, we're talking, end of July in Chula Vista, San Diego. I remember it was hot. It was like a heat wave, and our old place didn't have a central air. But we had little window units in both of our bedrooms. I remember that being like, really because of both of your education before and also just understanding afterwards, like we really had to keep you stuck in that bedroom for as long as possible, which is like a blessing and a curse because it kind of feels like a prison cell, but it also is like really nice to not have to go too far. But you did have to get up and go to the bathroom, those sort of things. And I remember just always leaving the coolness of our room to like the heat of the house. That was really shocking.
That would hit
Um,
like a wet sandbag on a hot sunny day.
that might actually be refreshing to have a wet sandbag. And I don't remember exactly when it started. I feel like it was days after birth, like not many days, but you got hit with this digestive demon and it was just wrecking your body. And I'll let you speak to it more, but I just remember like, you know, it was hard enough to recover from the physicality of pregnancy, the brutality of labor and birth, and then the challenges of like, okay, now I gotta like serve this newborn and try to like sleep and feed and do all these things. And then on top of it, we're gonna get hit with this digestive bug. And I just remember like, I mean, we're gonna be explicit here, right? I mean, we're not gonna like hold anything back.
I put the E for explicit stamp on the last episode, so we're just gonna keep that going. So
Let's keep that stamp going and let's put an S on this one because it was shitty and we were having diarrhea like you wouldn't imagine. And it was wonderful. But it was, again, really concerning of like, how does a human go through so much suffering for so long and then continue to endure it? So, again, I can't remember. It was a couple of days, but this kind of digestive stuff started up for you. Rocco had a little tummy stuff, but for the most part, he was doing pretty dang okay. Remember how special it was that our midwife would come to our house for those checks. And I feel like she came at like 24 hours, 72 hours, 3 days, and then like every couple of days for the first few weeks. And I remember looking forward to those appointments, being like, oh my gosh, thank God somebody's coming to support us. I also remember like initially, and we didn't really talk about this and like really have a plan about it, but those first few days, like it was just you, me, and Rocco. We didn't have any family come by. I remember, like, I don't even know when I texted my parents to be like, hey, you got a grandson. Cause it was just like, it just felt so intuitive to be like, let's circle the wagons. Let's kind of just kind of huddle up and just be this little tripod and just integrate this really intense experience. But on top of that, getting, a digestive bug was not helpful. So again, I remember a midwife coming to help. I remember that, breastfeeding was not a perfect, easy situation for you or for Rocco in the beginning. I'm sure part of it was probably the physicality of your body's recovering from birth and then having this digestive bug and not being able to stay hydrated or have any nutrients in your body for any period of time, as well as the sleep deprivation, all the things that come with infancy care. But I remember just being like, no effing way. Like, this isn't fair, And why has it got to be so hard for this mom? And then on top of it, now he's going to attack your nipples? Like, as if you needed any more challenges? So it was somewhere in this time that I remember being like, okay, what are we going to do? And our midwife was super helpful. We had a lactation consultant come to the house. She was super helpful. And I remember that being like really, really, really critical for us, just being able to like get through the day. Like, not even be like, okay, cool, now we want to breastfeed for X amount of time. It was like, can we just even get through this next feed? Like, because it was so all consuming and so intense. And again, a really tough thing for a partner to sit there and be like, what can I do? My poor wife is sitting there getting her nipples shredded. She's crapping herself. She's not been able to eat or drink anything for what feels like weeks. How the heck could this get any harder? Well, of course, stuff can get harder. It always can. So then I got sick with whatever that freaking bug was. So I start that. And then at the time, I remember we were all in the same room, but I remember being so, mindfully aware that bed sharing, needs to be done the right way. And just me being a big guy and just so, whatever. And also it was a queen bed in that room. So I remember I slept on the blow up mattress in the corner of the room so we could all be in there as a little family unit. But whatever reason, I'm sure it was the product, again, because we see this in the office, like when your body has distress, it's usually the accumulation of things that you've been through. So I'm sure it was the fact that, labor was really intense on my body too. Not as intense as yours. I didn't do the hard work that you did, but I did a lot of hard work and I gave my body for the greater good, just as you did. And then the recovery of like, okay, now like I'm trying to help my wife sit up in bed because her body is, rightfully so in a very beat up place. How can I support her and move her and shift things? And so posturally maybe and ergonomically maybe it wasn't perfect. But anyway, my low back flared up and I had a low back injury. That initial injury was when I was in college playing lacrosse, and it was like years since I had an issue since then. But funny how when life starts to turn up the dials of stress, things start to show up that maybe you didn't have to deal with before. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, connectedness wise, between how you communicate, how you navigate challenges. Everything changes when you have a baby. It's so cliche, but to me, it's just the pressure cooker intensifies, and therefore it kind of shows you where the vulnerabilities are in the pipes. So, anyway, I just remember being like, damn, dude, it was hard enough to take care of my wife and my son when I was physically capable, but now I'm crapping myself. I can't walk. I'm crawling around. It was just, I was an infant as well, but miserable and moaning and stuff. And again, it was just one of those things of like, how much more can we put on our plate and not absolutely explode into stardust? But I also think this is where massive perspective changes need a massive life altering challenge to be presented. Like the best stuff in life when you grow and evolve doesn't come from the little things. I know we were talking about that with labor, but I feel like that's why we went through such a brutal postpartum period, like physically, physiologically with the virus, and spiritually with the wear and the tear and the challenges with breastfeeding and recovering from birth, because we needed to evolve our software to become parents. We need to evolve our threshold for discomfort and our ability to work through as a team when we're both not optimal, because you'll never be optimal again. It's always going to be working a little bit of a deficit. And yeah, it was just one brutal thing after the next. But like all things, you stack a little bit of momentum, and all of a sudden you get to the point where now we're 3 years later, and we can laugh about it and be like, "Ha ha! Remember when we were crapping ourselves and couldn't get out of bed and you had to crawl around like babies?" But
Do you
you
remember
know,
had a system where, you were unable to obviously sleep in the air mattress when all of that was going down for you? I was still also not in the clear, by the way, with my situation. We joke that like we ordered so many depends on Instacart. Like literally still sometimes we'll order something on Instacart and it'll be like, did you forget something? Like depends. Size can we please move on? Those days are over, but we were ordering them on repeat because I was feeling the depends in all the ways. That was really really grim. But anyways, I'm in my depends, going through my third package of depends. You are now basically, we wish that you had depends, but at least you were mobile. Like I couldn't get myself to the bathroom because I remember standing up and being so shocked by the feeling of just having seemingly no pelvic floor, just like a bottomless pit. And I remember at one point, and I did adhere to like 1 week in the bed, 1 week on the bed, 1 week around the bed. But at one point when you were going through it, you were in the other room sleeping because you had to be. And I decided to venture out. I think Rocco was sleeping in my arms. I'm like, let me just stand up and let me just go there was something I needed to grab from not even the kitchen, the hallway. And I'm like, I can go get that. I have no way of waking up Joe. I need this. I was so dependent on you. Like I couldn't even just get up and get something. I'm like, I'm just gonna go do it. This was maybe at the 1 week mark. So I'm getting up and I'm like slowly walking. And like I remember like I kind of had to pee, but I was like, at any time in your life, you're like, I kind of have to pee. And yet I'm just gonna go grab this glass of water, whatever it is I was getting. And I remember just like taking a step and finally taking the first step out and just like peeing all over the floor. Cause I guess I also wasn't wearing bottoms, or I don't know, maybe my diaper was tapped out. Who knows? But I remember just being like, whoa, like I wasn't expecting that. That was just a low point that I remember, and just being shocked that like, wow, I can't even walk 10 paces to get something for myself. And like I also can't hold in my pee for 1 minute. That was crazy. And then I also remember the first night that you slept outside of the room and I was like calling for you and you couldn't hear me. And I couldn't walk to get to you. I was helpless. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't walk. I was in the bed. And I remember feeling so defeated. Like you couldn't hear me. There was no way I was going to get help from you. And I think it was because I had to go to the bathroom and I needed so much assistance going to the bathroom because of the tearing. I had some tearing from the birth experience and also because of the diarrhea. Like it was a whole ordeal to get me to the bathroom. I needed you to help me walk. I needed you to help me sit down. I needed you to help me get up. Remember, we had a system. We had like a whole cart in the bathroom and we would like squirt me down with the what it's called. I don't remember what it's called right now, but the little squeeze bottle and do the herbs. And then you'd get my new diaper on and you'd help me step into the new diaper. Like we had a system. And I needed to go to the bathroom by myself. And I'm like, how do I do this? I had had the previous experience of a fail trying to leave the bedroom with him. I'm like, I know I don't have the strength to do that. I'm going to have to leave the baby in the room and get up and go to the bathroom somehow. And I had nowhere to leave Rocco. So I'm looking and I see that Snuggle Me organic thing. It's like a DockATot. It's like a little baby lounge thing. It was on the top shelf of the closet. And I'm like, I got to get the DockATot so I can put the baby in the DockATot and I can crawl to the bathroom. And I remember I was like holding Rocco. I'm trying to reach up for this DockATot. My body feels like it's going to explode. And I remember just like, I finally got the DockATot down, but it knocked a bunch of other stuff over. And I remember just like collapsing on the floor and just weeping, like weeping. It was such a low point. And that is like a pinnacle moment of that postpartum experience for me that I think so many moms can connect with and so many couples can connect with. And when I tell that story now, I think, well, why were we in the situation where we didn't have support? What was it that we couldn't receive the support? And I think that on the one hand, like you mentioned, we innately were just like, we want to kind of integrate this experience as a family. And we had a friend who's a postpartum doula that ended up coming a couple days later to help. But like, on the one hand, we needed help desperately. On the other hand, I was incapable of even receiving that help. And I think you were in the same boat too, right? And I think there was some additional vulnerability that we were both pooping our pants because who do you let into that scenario? Like, who could we let into that space? Even people that I knew and trusted, even my own family members. I'm like, I don't feel safe or comfortable or ready to have someone else in that space, even though it could be so helpful, because I feel like the trade-off would have been someone else in the space that I still wasn't ready for. It was this interesting like conundrum. Could you kind of speak to that? And like, and I remember we did eventually have the family come over. I think it was at the 1 week mark. And I know that we were receiving a lot of texts. When can we come see the baby? I'm like, as soon as we can get our bowels dialed in a little bit.
As soon as our sphincters stay shut. Yeah, no, I can speak to the challenge with receiving help, and it breaks my heart to hear that story again. It's so emotionally, so spiritually all consuming, and it brings up layers. Like it brings up layers. Like how have you been at receiving help in the past? What's your personality? Are you really independent? Are you really social? Are you the person in your family that always hosts families events? Like I it blows my mind sometimes when we hear patients in the office. They'll be like, oh yeah, I had like, a bunch of visitors come to the house. I'm like, dude, why are you playing host right now? Like maybe you're not crapping yourself like we were, so maybe you're a little bit more capable, but you should, if anybody's come in your house, they should be saying, all right, can I hold the baby? Can I do your dishes? Can I make you some food? Not can you freaking entertain me like it's Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Anyway, so yeah, that was really difficult to receive help. Really, really humbling. Especially as a guy, because I'm like, okay, I'll just be able to physical power through anything. I'm so tough. And then it was like, okay, actually, you're not as tough as you thought you were. Your physical body is gone, and what are you going to rely on? What are you going to do? Because the show must go on. That baby's still going to wake up in 10 minutes from now and need to be held and fed and cared for. And Eva's going to need to go to the bathroom soon, and you're going to need to eat soon. So it's like the show just must go on. I think this is why, again, sometimes you just got to go. Just do it. It doesn't have to feel good, but just keep going. I remember at one point, it was in this first few days too, of being like, watching you get assaulted by Rocco with breastfeeding and being so angry and upset and frustrated, just like, please stop hurting my wife. And again, those kind of instincts kicked in of like, dude, this dude is messing with my wife, hurting my wife, breaking her down. And like, I almost kind of resented Rocco a little bit. And it's so hard for me to say those words, but I have to, because I'm sure other parents have felt that way. That, I felt, boom, our freedom is gone. Boom, our health is gone. Boom, our comfort is gone. And this little dude is not making anything better. I realize now that that was my immaturity coming out, and I had to grow up. I had to evolve. I had to become a dad. I had to become a real man, not just a little boy who thinks, oh, I can handle tough things, but never really have to deal with adversity. And that was just a transformative experience. And I know you went through a similar transition with motherhood, but I also remember this is why I'm so grateful for the work that we get to do in our practice every single day, and why we've loved showing up for our community and for families since the day that we opened our doors, is when the shit is hitting the fan, who do you turn to? Because most moms in the traditional model, it's all right, you give birth, I'll see you in 6 or 8 weeks at your first baby checkup. And that's a long freaking time when you're in trench warfare. And that's not even talking about maybe the support that the partner needs, or the baby needs, or, the family unit needs, or the mom needs, mental health, emotional health. Usually just a quick, like, are you still bleeding? Are you still, okay, cool, baby's gaining weight. Okay, bye. See you later in another 6 weeks. So a lot of moms feel really helpless, really hopeless. And I remember feeling so hopeless with the breastfeeding thing, be like, damn, we've helped so many families with this stuff and have learned so much and have educated ourselves so much. And it's still so hard. Why is it so hard? I thought it was going to be easy because we had all this understanding and all this belief and all this sort of stuff, but it wasn't. And I learned that breastfeeding and so much of parenthood is a skill. And skills, you're not just born with good skills. They come with feedback and refinement and time and reps and so on and so forth. And I remember, I'm so grateful for this, and I have to share it. I remember being like, who can help us at this time? And a light bulb went off. I thought about, you know what? There's this amazing chiropractor, Dr. Stephanie Libbs, and she's devoted her life and her practice to serving babies and serving kids and moms and families and breastfeeding and all these things. And I thought, I gotta reach out to her. So I remember texting her, and it was like, who knows? I feel like it was late at night, and she showed up for us, man. She showed up to support me right away, asking questions about you and figuring out when we can get Rocco into the office and me into the office and you into the office as soon as you could keep your diapers on. And I'm so grateful for her for forever, because she gave us tangible support. She gave us action items. She gave us hope. And she gave us just a little something that we could do to get to the next moment. Not thinking about the whole breastfeeding journey, not thinking about the whole infant care, not thinking about the whole thing, but just a little step, little step, little step. And I realize now that we're out of the haze of postpartum that that's what we get to do for families all the time. And I am so freaking grateful that we get to do that. I'm so grateful for Dr. Steph to, be there in my darkest hour so that I can have a resource and feel like, okay, I can actually help my wife by doing X, Y, and Z. And if I can get my child care to help his body adapt and become more functional, then that's going to help Eva, and then that's going to help us, and then these little kind of trickle things. So, yeah, support is everything. It's hard to ask for. It's critical, and you got to find the people that, again, have committed their life to this, and not. It's easy for us to want to rely on family members, but they might not have the best information, or they might have a little bit of a bias, or it might come with a whole package of triggers of like, ugh, I don't receive feedback from my dad that well, or oh, mom, don't tell me how to raise my kids because I didn't like the way you raised me. All these little things that come up when you're getting support, but when it's this kind of third party objective, it's a provider, but they're committed their life to it. That to me was so special for us.
I thank you so much for sharing that, because I do think it's such a beautiful thing, and it is what we do. And if there's any of you listening to this who are healthcare providers, you're birth workers, and you work in this world, it was really humbling and surprising and shocking for us to have this skill set. But when you're going through it, everything shifts and everything changes. And even with everything we know about birth, I know that we really wanted to have the experience of taking a birth prep class together, because we just wanted to have that experience of being the parents in the birth class, even though we went on day one and she was like, does anyone know what a uterus is? And we're like, all right, never mind. We're not going to do this birth prep class. But, it was still, we just wanted to participate in that experience in some way. And I think there's such a difference between, especially when you're in that role for other people all day long, it's okay to need to then receive that support yourself. And also, as a chiropractor, I never could imagine there was going to be a situation where like I wouldn't be capable emotionally, physically, of checking and assessing and adjusting my own baby. That was a moment that I looked forward to my entire life. Oh my God, we're going to adjust our newborn when they're out of the womb. And like, whoa, whoa. I've never been in a less capable headspace, less clear of a vessel to be able to help clear someone else's nervous system. And it just speaks to the co-regulation of the family unit. And if your nervous system's not clear, you can't support another person's nervous system. And when one member of the family gets regulated, it helps to regulate the entire family member. And having an objective, regulated third-party person who knows what they're talking about, who've dealt with this before, who can play that role for you, is just so beneficial. So I too am so grateful to have had that support, to have been humbled in that way, to have that inform and deepen the care that we're able to provide for other families, having been through, our version of the postpartum trenches, which really sucked for a long time. And I really did think it was never going to end, and life would never be the same. And life's not the same, but it's definitely not as grim as I thought it was going to be, forevermore. So thank you so much for sharing some of these trials and tribulations from your perspective. There's obviously so much more that we can unpack within each subcategory. I'd love for us to share more about our breastfeeding experience. I'd love for you to share some of the tangible ways you supported me with breastfeeding, because I think a lot of partners think there's nothing they can do. So you're going to have to be a recurrent guest on this podcast now. So we're going to have to figure out our tech setup, figure out our schedule, and get it going, because I've just been having so much fun with you on these episodes.
Well, it's so fun to recount these memories now that we've got some time and space and healing in between then. And I would love to do more. And I think we should get Rocco on here too at some point and just have him share a little bit about how grateful he is for Mommy's Milkies and all of the sacrifices that Mama makes. But I love you, and I'm grateful to be in the trenches with you, with parenthood. And I'm so honored to be in a position to be able to help other people at their darkest moments, when it feels like infancy period is never going to end, and you're in the trenches, and it's all things consuming and challenging. But I can promise you that the best stuff in life is that. And once you get a little bit of time and space, a little bit of perspective, a little bit of integration, I think this is why lots of parents will sign up for multiple rounds of parenthood. Because I remember going through that infancy period and be like, the people that have 4 kids are insane. They must be just absolutely mind blown insane, because who would sign up for this again? But now that I'm kind of far removed from it, and now that I've got new skills, and now that I've got new habits and new routines and a whole different perspective, I'm kind of stoked for if we get to go through another infancy period, because I want to see my level of growth. I want to kind of use the litmus test of, okay, this is how I performed round one. How am I going to perform round two? And every baby's different. Every pregnancy is different. Every birth is different. But I'm different too. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for all of us.
Sweet. Well, we will see you on the next one. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Everybody have a beautiful, amazing day.
Sorry if you're eating lunch while listening to this. Love you, babe.
Okay, bye. Love you. If you would like to shorten the learning curve and perhaps even avoid some of the very common struggles of the postpartum experience, we poured everything that we wish we knew into a 38-page guide to help you prepare during pregnancy for a smoother, more supported postpartum experience physically and mentally. We include recipes that you can meal prep ahead of time and stash in your freezer, checklists of things that visitors can help with before being allowed to hold the baby. This has got a little bit of everything in there. Check the show notes for the link to get our postpartum prep guide. And thank you so much for listening to our story. Share it with a friend who is going through or has recently gone through this experience. They might appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one.